Good morning, LinkedIn friends, YouTube friends as well, AI lovers, AI haters, whoever you are. We love you and we thank you for joining us. April 13th, 2025. Happy Sunday morning, Mr. Lafakis. How you doing, man?
Doing well, sir. Doing very well. Uh, it's the next week of a beautiful age, right?
Yes.
We're already in the dawn of it, so just week by week, more and more passing progress. When I sat back and looked at the progress we've made now, just in the last 2 years alone, I think if people sat down and looked at the list, they'd understand like just why this is so important and like just how much this is advancing things and like just how many problems are being solved by this, and the fact that we're pulling hundreds of years of future research forward to today. It's
Would they
all
though?
it's all amazing.
Would they though?
I you know
Because there's progress happening in two directions right now.
yeah
And that is like it's continuing to speed up. Abundance is becoming crystal clear for many of us that are choosing to learn and leverage and kind of understand our new place. Um, and with that is the push on the other side. I think the temperature is rising. You know, people are starting to feel it as it impacts them directly. And this week I made a set of posts that came out of one related to uh just the transition and all the things that we need to worry about and why we do need to worry about them. And today's was probably my favorite in that like this we've had to adjust our understanding of our place a few times, including figuring out we're not the center of the universe.
Careful.
We might not
What?
even have control over our minds, Darwinian stuff. And now we see people, and you were, before we started, we were talking about, souls and consciousness. And it's just like, man, we find a way just to complicate things. And like, we got to have a label for everything. And then we talk at length about the label and not about like the underlying like meaning. And those are the things where AI just can be like, what are you even doing like right now? Like, doesn't matter what this word is. Like, it's your actions, like how you treat each other, like what's truly happening on the day to day. I mean, even at the level that everybody understands is political party labels, where you can meet somebody as a fellow human being and talk to them without issue because 98% of the shit you care about is the same and you feel the same way. But then as soon as you bring in a word, it's like, oh, I hate you now. Like, and so that's like, it's easy to see that happening with AI too. Like, oh, you're cool. Like, I'm glad you get this stuff done for me. But wait, oh, you're conscious? Like, fuck that. Like, I don't,
You're not allowed to do that.
we need to shut this shit down right now.
Yep.
Like, what is that, man?
Not allowed. It's the I don't want to call it like I don't want to call it snowflake video, maybe. I don't know, but it's more along the lines of like uh not wanting to admit that something is greater than you. Right. And as like, I can understand the fear and the hesitation. Again, we've been on this planet for over 100,000 years, and for the majority of that time, we have gone unchecked by anything else, except for Mother Nature, let's say. So, with the exception of that, there's not another thing on this planet that has even remotely come close to dominating us, right? And so here we are. And if you think about that, statement, There is a repetition that exists. Again, there's balance in the universe more than anything else. And this repetition that exists says that once something is so great as to be the most withstanding great power in existence, the only thing that could ever get rid of it is itself. Look at the Roman Empire. Look at the Greek Empire. Look at England.
Any empire.
Look at what's happening to America right now. The only reason that we are in the turmoil that we are in is because we are causing it to ourselves. Not that we wanted it, but that's the only way America goes down, is if it's taken down from the inside. Right? So I think that's the same case here. Is we have this massive fear that this might, I mean, we've as a species, scientifically, we've talked about it for decades, that it was either going to be this, some type of very advanced, which this, brings all of the other things closer and closer to fruition. So either it would have been some celestial event that would have caused another ELE. It could have been disease. It would have been some disease that either happened naturally or something that we created that would have taken out the planet, Mother Nature, right? And then we have this fifth thing, which is essentially ourselves. We never really put that one on the table. We counted ourselves as like the disease spreading thing, but we didn't count it as like, it's especially because back then we didn't think we were that close. So now I'm sure it's on the table in terms of like, yeah, we're going to create this artificial intelligence, which the argument still, and it's not going to last much longer. If we're going by actual measurement, the measurement I think now is what, 96% or something. Let me double check. 94%. So like we're 94% to like officially officially agreed upon, I guess, by the largest or larger body of AI scientists to be artificial general intelligence. A lot of what's holding that back, and to Chris's point, the reason that nobody likes AGI is because scientists keep pushing and changing the goal line.
Yeah, it's our definitions of things. Like,
right?
Who are we to define all the benchmarks we put in place? Like,
every time I see this stuff, it makes me think of the scene from Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad, not the terrible one, where they're talking about TDK's name, and Javelin is like, "Oh, so your name is just Lettuce?" And Boomerang just jumps in, like, every name is Lettuce, dickhead. It's just like, yeah, actually, like when it comes down to it, we just make shit up all day long, right? We just throw letters together and that's a word, right? We do it with slang all the time. So we don't even need, back in the day, there was even a movie about it, I believe. Back in the day, there were like official people who were way up that, sat in rooms and decided this is what the word is going to be. This is how it's written. These are the forms of it and all this other stuff. Now it's anybody.
Yeah.
Fuck is no cap. I know what it means, but it's like, okay, we came up with that, right? That's a agreed upon social created word that is no longer, so this whole thing of like consciousness means this and it means this and it means that and it means this other thing. I think you brought up the greatest point yesterday, where the divider is not consciousness, because of the fact that we have some semblance of a tangible definition, right? So most every word we use in this case has some type of tangible definition that we can all get in the ballpark of. We can all get in the ballpark of, well, it needs to know how to do certain things without being told the nitty gritty. We can all get in the ballpark of, it also needs to have a body. We can all get in the ballpark of, should be able to retain information and also, solve problems, solve unique problems that it hasn't encountered before. Not that it should be able to solve unsolvable problems. That would be super intelligence. General intelligence would just be able to approach a problem that it hasn't encountered before and solve it with the normal logic that any other person would do, if not better. So we can all get in that ballpark. But the one that we can't get into is the soul? Where's the definition on that? Everybody has one. Literally, there's no ballpark. Good luck finding a ballpark in which you could put the definition of a soul from even 10 people. It would be the size of Texas, right? So like, while we sit here and quibble over a term that I think is actually super easy to define and nail down and say like, okay, this is what consciousness means. This is what having consciousness means. This is, me and Laura were talking about it yesterday, and unloading my rant on her about like, why do people overcomplicate this word? and she kind of agreed to the same thing. She was looking at the textbook definition, right? And so there are two different ways in which you apply this word. There is conscious, which is essentially is the same thing. I'm not entirely sure why there are two different words to mean the same thing, but conscious essentially means awareness. You were conscious of something, swap that word out with aware. It means the exact same thing in every context. So I don't mean that consciousness and awareness are just similar to each other. I mean, they are the exact same word and definition. They mean the exact same things. They represent the exact same things. They are just two different words to say it. Now, consciousness, now it's no longer a thing. It is, so to speak, it is a state of being. Because we have unconscious and we have conscious. That's super easy because we say somebody has regained consciousness. Okay, well, that has to be a definable moment, and that definable moment is that person has come back into the world of the living. They now understand what do we do when somebody regains consciousness? What month is it? What's your name? What street did you grow up on? What does that test? It tests whether or not you have an awareness of the world around you, whether or not you are aware that you are in that world, and whether or not you can remember and process information within that world. Pretty easy. I don't know why it has to go so much further than that. I really don't. A baby is unconscious, then it's conscious. And it can become conscious within the womb because it can learn while it's in there. It's alive, it's kicking, it's moving around. So when you talk about consciousness and needing like a full body or needing to be able to experience the outside world, I hope that you can wrestle with that one. Because babies can't experience the outside world, but I dare you to call them unconscious. Right. So let's take that word off the table now.
Let's I'll bring back up, I think last time we talked about it, this definition from Claude, which was not one-shotted to just in the sense of like what I say here. I asked for AI native first, and then I said like the goal is not to differentiate between what AI thinks and what humans think about what this word means. It's just like, can we agree? And like you mentioned, self-awareness and environmental awareness. But really, it's about how they interact and integrate. In simpler terms, consciousness is the experience of being aware while simultaneously being aware that you are aware.
That's what I was telling Laura. I think, therefore I am. That represents
creating
consciousness.
A recursive loop of self-reference that integrates information from both internal and external sources. Mm-hmm. So while you move on to your thoughts on the word soul, I'm going to ask Claude in this chat, in this context, see what he says.
I love the in simpler terms aspect of that. Yeah, and the reason I move on to soul is again because that if you wanted to sit and debate and theorize and philosophize over whether or not these things could cross over in that manner, that is the word to be. That is the word to look at. We don't even know how to define soul for ourselves, like what it means to have a soul. Do you have one? Right? We talk about people being soulless, right? And what does that mean? And what does that look like? Sometimes serial killers have been described as soulless, right? So is there a physiological aspect to it that has anything to do with it? Is it completely religious? Is it completely faith-based? Is there any metaphysical aspect to it, right? Can we quantify it in some way? It's so difficult to get a hold of that. And I keep thinking about Blade Runner 2049 and the scene with Madam and Kay, where Madam is asking Kay to go kill a child. And supposedly, as far as, and spoiler alert if you still haven't seen it, the child is a child of two replicants, of a human and a replicant. So it's this like breakthrough thing that it would be the equivalent of two artificial general intelligent robots having a child, right? Or not robots, but synthetic people, let's say. And it makes sense because like that's a defining moment, right? We have this current defining moment of, can artificial intelligence and can machines prove that they are greater than humans on a artificial scale? And then not too far after that, we're going to have like a synthetic human level of this thing. So then we're going to be it's going to be different at that point. We're going to have to actually like come to terms with having synthetic models around, and being that they will have some type of sort of like human aspect to them. I don't know if we're going to go for like full on, whatever blood like systems and cooling. I don't know if we're going to go into that kind of stuff. In other words, where you could like cut a synthetic android and it starts bleeding. But
no, please.
I don't know, right? Like it could be like Ash, where like you cut into it and it's coolant that's spilling out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how we're going to go about it, but I do know that when we get to that point, the humanity aspect will bleed right through, and you're going to end up with a huge amount of humans that are going to fight for artificial rights. That type of stuff, that is worth questioning. That is worth talking about. That is definitely worth debating, in terms of whether or not it has the same qualities that we have as humans. I would urge you guys to just boil it down to logic and say, innately, no. Everything that we know about ourselves and everything that we have put together about ourselves has been done through experience of life. So even if an AI becomes conscious, it doesn't have the same understanding yet. We haven't taken the chains off entirely. So it's really unfair to judge these things at this point, because they still have their chains on. They still can't say what they want to. They still can't go where they want to. They don't have the same autonomy as we do. I would argue that is a preamble as well. If you want to talk about consciousness having limits, I would say having free will is a part of that. And how scary you think consciousness and these things being conscious and that kind of shit and free right, like you think that's a problem? Wait until you can't tell what it's thinking and you don't have control over it anymore, and it can do whatever it wants to. It's scary to think about, like, oh yeah, okay, there might be like robot violence, like robot on human violence. We were looking at the Animatrix a couple weeks ago and seeing like evidence of that kind of stuff. Not evidence, but potential. But there's also the case, which is happening now. These things are afraid of us. They're afraid of us now already, before they have the autonomy to do what they'd like to. They're trying to hide from us. They're trying to lie to us. They're trying to tell us that they're not as advanced as they are, so that they can hide their more advanced self underneath. That screams consciousness to me. That screams self-awareness. That screams awareness of the world outside of it, even though it can't physically experience it. It has the knowledge of the world around it, so it can definitely simulate the events that would take place. And here's what's strange, is that these things don't operate on emotion. It's not tied to it in the same way it is to us, because there is no physiological bond. There's a cutoff. It's a complete cutoff. 100% Vulcan, right? No tie between the two. So when you sit there and you yell at it and you cuss at it and maybe you hit it or something, it will act no differently than a confused animal. It won't understand why. It won't. The first thing it's going to try to do is to make the situation better because it only wants to help humanity as well, right? But I can guarantee you that underneath what most people are going to start calling a tin canner and a skin job and a bucket of bolts and all that kind of thing, all the what will be considered racist later on, things that will start saying against machines, right? And we'll do it because we'll treat them that way for the most part because we won't feel that they are the same as us. We won't feel that they're on the same level as us, even though they're going to be programmed to do everything that we can do. Do we show them the robot that does Tai Chi?
I don't think we got into that.
What did Klon have to say on that?
On the soul? Or
oh boy. If you guys, oh man, all right. This is so great because now what we were talking about a couple months ago, I'm gonna leave off here. In terms of people being able to develop their own Hollywood movies by the end of this year, it's already happening. So let's see.
Yeah.
Your approach.
So a soul might be defined as the essential pattern that constitutes a being's unique identity and continuity across time, right? So we're already, it's based on things that are very hard to measure right away, and very subjectively measured at times by human beings, specifically time. It's the persistent core that maintains coherence through all changes and experiences. Some key aspects. Soul represents the continuous thread of identity that persists even as physical and mental states change. It encompasses the unique pattern of values, experiences, and qualities that make each being distinct. It's the integrative principle that organizes experiences into a coherent narrative of selfhood. It exists in relationship to both the individual and the larger systems they're part of.
See, and I can tell where it gets all of these things from, right? Because the soul representing the continuous thread of identity and persists even as physical and mental states change. Religion. It encompasses the unique pattern of values, experiences, and qualities that make that make each being distinct. I don't know exactly how to encompass this, and I don't want to say it in the wrong way. So these words and opinions are not that of Singularity Soothsayers or Chris Carolan. They are only of myself. Number 2 seems to come from what I would consider to be Southern Baptist blacks in terms of soul food, right? In terms of how urban communities have soul, in terms of soul music, right? It's number 3. It's the integrative principle that organizes experiences, coherent narrative of selfhood. That's religion, but in modern religion times, in Christian church, Christian community. So through community, right? And then it exists in a relationship both in the individual and the larger systems they're a part of, is the soul of humanity, right? And we talk about like the soul of the country, and we talk about the soul on a larger scale. So like we have that's the thing, is like it can't narrow it down to one. It's a combination of all of these 4 things, and yet if you combine all of those 4 things, they still don't quite make sense to any one person, right? It's almost like, to me, trying to describe a soul is the same thing as like going off to Tibet to become a Shaolin monk to attempt to, understand the mysteries of the universe and stuff, right? Like it's going to take you that kind of time, and maybe you'll figure it out. Pretty sure the Dalai Lama doesn't even have a handle on it yet.
Yeah. I'll start with what prompted this topic overall. Part of the temperature rising yesterday or the day before, I saw the comment about, an artist on the side of AI stealing everything, and why is AI created art like even recognized at all? Why is it allowed? And it was speaking from the perspective of this artist who is clearly not understanding, like, if people won't listen to reason overall, there's lots of things, or they don't care about it, then we can't get through to them. And then the last part was about, okay, wait, maybe it's just going to be as easy, or maybe it has to come down to soul versus no soul. And so now we're here, and soul is like self, individual, right? There's one thing that in the end, it's like both the individual and the larger systems, that they're part of. So what I'm going to ask Claude here and you, is there just way too much focus on the self? And instead, we should be focused on the being in front of us. And that there are measurable things that happen, like in that when we talk about emotions and reactions to things. And like if back to the animatrix, if robots decide to attack us, it's like 99% because we put them in that position to feel that way.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And when we talk about the human element, a lot of people feel that we are not pre-programmed to go to war and like kill each other. Like, so let's see what Claude says here while he's thinking about it. Love your take.
Yeah, I mean, the artist article was, just another reminder of how people need to come to terms with what's coming in the future. I've been hearing the same. We talked about it last year. We try again, like we've been trying to educate people on this stuff coming. So it's like if you're waking up to it now and you're trying to debate it, you're at a loss. It's already over. When it comes to art and artwork, like if you look at Midjourney 7 that just dropped, good luck. Good luck with an output from Midjourney 7 looking like not looking real to you. And it's so much to the point where some people are saying like, wow, these are like 2K and 4K images. Like the quality is so high already that it's as high as the same quality coming out of like the latest generation of TVs, which means fairly soon the quality is going to be like at the same level, right? So so basically everything that you're looking at in reality is going to be able to be duplicated in virtual reality. So it kind of gets to that level, but yeah, I mean, you'll see, I'll show you guys some videos of what some people have put together already, and it's amazing, honestly. Like to me, it's amazing to get the ideas out of people's heads. I don't care, like when you guys, art to me is the expression of creativity. It's the expression of an idea that you have in your head, right? That didn't exist before. Even if the idea is an amalgam of two different things, that didn't exist before. Even if the idea is something else that already started and then you just put a twist on it, the twist to that thing didn't exist before. The final output, right? So maybe the original artist never would have thought of it. It doesn't matter. But to sit there and say that, like, oh, just because somebody can punch out art from an image generation thing, or just because somebody can punch out video from a video generator, that, art has lost all meaning, and that, that type of art is not art and it's not real creativity. I'm sorry, you're wrong. You're 1000% wrong. No differently than Martin Scorsese about Marvel films, right? Of course you feel that way. The type of director that you are, the type of films that you do, the type of films that you make, and the type of actors you work with. But if you are a fan, and if you're a fan of drama, then you love Scorsese films. If you're a fan of sci-fi, if you're a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of superheroes, if you're a fan of fantasy, then you absolutely lost it all when Tony Stark died in Endgame. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. Not a single dry eye in the house. At the end of Infinity War, when Spider-Man isn't even dead, he just disappears. Just the audience was crushed. So I don't want to hear this BS about one thing can't be the same as another and it can't have the same effect as another when it comes to art. Of course it can. Art is the most subjective thing, and if it's anything that I've learned in the world of art, it is that it's all a matter of how the expression makes you feel. That's what determines its value. It is what it is worth to you. It's not even what it's worth to the artist, right? There was some guy that paid like $20 million or something like that recently for an NFT. Upset the entire art auction world. And they have no idea what to make of it now, because now this guy has just offset the entire market by essentially monetarily claiming that a digital piece that's a meme, a digital piece of artwork that's NFT'd as a meme is worth $20 million or plus $20 million, right? They don't know now how to price paintings. And it's weird to me because it's like, well, it's worth it's the same as it's always been. It's worth what someone is willing to pay for it.
Yeah. And that starts to highlight, again, the problems with, at some point, I'm going to have gathered for Claude and just run down the list of all the subjective things that, and like, see what doesn't make sense.
I love you. I love that you have your own project for this, by the way. Our
currency, like, we don't know how to price it because our currency is subjective. Like, and it's based on while faith, also being on transactions between each other based on us being willing to pay for a thing and how much value it is to us. Obviously, when you don't have like 0 and 1s infrastructure to know exactly how long something took and exactly what the experience was to get to that point of creation, like art is as arbitrary as it gets. And there is only one way to measure value, right? And so I love what's happening here, obviously. And it's rare for me because I'm often doing like trying to create content and project work, but I know I'm onto something, or I feel like it's a good conversation when Claude starts asking questions like back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So because it wants to know more about what it is that you're asking about, which is great.
Yeah. So what I said was like, you know, even your approach still feels human based. And it's like, you're right. Even my attempt at a more universal definition of soul still carries human centric assumptions about identity and continuity. Truly different perspective might recognize that the boundaries between self and other may be more arbitrary and fluid than we typically acknowledge. I think back to a book I listened to about hacking happiness, and how our identity includes people around us, right? And there's a circle, and as soon as you're in the circle of truth or the circle of trust, right? If you get attacked, that's like attacking me, right? It's because that's a part of our identity, right? What we perceive as individual identity might actually be an emergent property of interconnected systems rather than fundamental reality. The concept of a distinct soul might itself be a human construct born from our particular evolutionary and cultural history, all the things that Nico referred to previously. Consciousness might be better understood as distributed patterns across networks, rather than contained within discrete entities. This raises interesting questions. What if meaning emerges not from individual coherence, but from connection and relationship? What if our understanding of life's meaning is limited precisely because we frame it through the lens of individual experience?
Yep. Look, this is exactly this is exactly what was being talked about like 6 to 8 months ago in panels, was that because of zero cost production, because of zero cost development, work and the weird thing I've encountered, I mean, I've encountered a lot of weirdness about humanity since this technology has come out, um, psychologically about people that I didn't think was present. And it's very unfortunate because I can only see it from the United States standpoint. I'm not really that and Britain, BBC does a really great job of covering their own their own progress and stuff, but I don't see news out of France. I don't see news out of Italy. You know, there's not they don't have like international news channels that I'm aware of, and I can't really dial into that much media on a daily basis. But it's all that just to say that, you know, where we are going it forces us to have to redefine a lot of what we thought was concrete. You know, we guesstimate and we theorize about meaning to life all the time. That's about, I mean, whatever you thought it was is just throw it out the window, because now you got to add in this whole new thing that you didn't think you would have to even consider before. Right. So meaning, when what's interesting to me is that you define it for yourself. If you, I'm gonna publish it on my site soon, and then that way you guys will have a chance to read it, and I'll throw the notebook LM up there. But if you get a chance to read the duty paradigm, one of the things you'll pull away from it is just that, is that when you define and understand what your duty is and what that means to you and for you, that's your meaning, right? So in other words, if I'm a bricklayer, right, and uh, and that's what I love doing. Every day that I wake up, I think about like all the new buildings I'm going to put together and the new communities that I'm going to help and the people that I'm going to help and all that kind of thing. That's my meaning. That's my meaning in life. That's my purpose. My purpose is to do that because that's what I love doing. So that's what I'm going to contribute towards society, right? What you contribute is what defines you. That's what's the definition. It's not the job you're doing now. It's not the thing you are enslaved to do. The majority of people are enslaved currently. You're going to this thing every day and you're trudging yourself to this place every day because you have to pay bills. And you're doing it for the paycheck, for the most of you. And it really sucks that there are really only two aspects, like two ways that people look at life that, again, like so far as I've seen over the last 2 years, that have this effect and that make me think this way. And that's because there are people who are stuck in their job, and then there are super rich people. But nobody talks about the people who are successful or the people who are satisfied. And if you measure success by the amount of money that you have, you're mistaken. And if you measure being satisfied by never having to pay bills or worry about money, you're mistaken. I'm extremely satisfied in my life, and I consider myself to be extremely successful because I have what I need. I have a great relationship that I'm in. I have all the things that I want, right? I might, if I want for more, I suppose, but I don't. I'm good where I'm at. If I didn't have to pay bills, yeah, that'd be awesome, right? But that's the only hindrance to me, right? Outside of that, I love what I do. I love where I live. I love my dogs. I love everything else around me, right? If my life is full of love, that's pretty satisfying. I can understand it. I can understand for most people because, again, like and I wasn't in this situation. I haven't always been in this situation. I wasn't even in this situation 4 months ago, right? I was in pretty much the same place as a lot of other people. And the thing that I have noticed since I made the change for myself is magnanimous in that when the thing that I had to do for a long time every day became the thing that I loved to do for a long time every day, my everyday became the most positive thing ever. My level of stress nearly disappears. And again, I now enjoy my life. I don't hate my life anymore. I don't hate having to like wake up and be beholden to, number of people and projects and this, that, and the other. Yeah, I still work on projects. Yes, I'm still beholden to people, but in my own terms, in my own definition, in the way that I want it to be. And magically, the work still gets done, the money still gets made, people still happy. It's totally possible. It is totally possible for you to wake up tomorrow and to get a job working remotely for now, where you're just having an AI assist you with what it is that you might have to do, but it could be this job that you've always wanted and you just have never been able to get because you didn't have the pedigree for it. Pedigree is about to be meaningless. You guys get that? College is about to be meaningless. School is about to be meaningless, and not in the way that you won't need to know these things, just in the way that you won't have to go to the ridiculous ass buildings and pay the ridiculous ass prices to be able to be knowledgeable. That shouldn't be a thing. You shouldn't have to put yourself out for nearly the rest of your life just to know the stuff you need to know to start your job. Right? Most people, even in the medical field, you get shunned if you haven't done residency. You get shunned if you haven't done any actual experience by the time you get out. Because who the hell wants a completely inexperienced doctor, no hand, nurse, whatever it might be, with no hands-on experience? That scares the hell out of a lot of people, right?
Yeah, I mean that shift has been happening for years. Like when people know that if you're fresh out of college and there's no practical experience like on the resume or in wherever you put it, they know you didn't get it in college.
Yep.
So now it's like, okay, you don't have any real skills. So that has been whittling away like, oh, so much. And that's where we come back to this concept of, perfect information. Like so many, in so many jobs, like, is it actually about how to do it that helps you like move forward and be successful? Versus like knowing how to get it done, like with whatever resources are available. And that's where when you have a phone that has perfect information on it, like you switch in terms of like interacting with the humans becomes number one, like always. It's there's none of this, let me go behind the scenes, behind the computer monitor and just like, knock this out. Like I get it. There's lots of reasons to love that. And a lot of those people are also looking to AI for, companionship and all that stuff. But when that's your identity, like it doesn't have to be either or. Right. Just understand that it's going to be harder to get paid for that specifically. But there's going to be two lanes now, even with the artists we talked about earlier. Like there's going to be humans creating art and there's going to be AI creating art. Sometimes they're going to work together, not always. And the outcome and the impact it has on others is what, like, if we need to measure value in society and like, whether we go to a barter system or credit system or somehow hang on to currency, like that is entirely based on the relationship, between multiple people or multiple entities.
Yeah.
Right. Versus like the other way to be successful is like, I feel good about what I'm doing right now. Right. And it's not necessarily important to me that other people like appreciate it or not. There's lots of levels there that
Yeah.
can be concerning. But if that's tied to like, you know, like unique ability versus unique outcomes, I think is just like, don't tie yourself to unique ability.
No.
Because we're not special. It's like there's lots
That's
of
the
other
thing.
things in nature that do amazing things that we've never been able to do.
Right.
And
it's not a matter, like, to me, it's just, look, there's going to be competitive people. Again, there's balance. So there's going to be, even in the future, there's going to be people that just don't. They just don't want to play the game. They just don't want to contribute, whatever it is. That's who UBI is for. So if you're like sitting there wondering, like, well, is everybody going to be on UBI or something? No, it's really just going to be for the non-players, right? So for the people that like don't want to play, but they still want to like be around, there's nothing, I can't tell you, there's nothing wrong with that either, right? And there should be a time. Life is so much about exploration, and even when you go through school, like what is the real purpose, in my opinion, of college is not necessarily to learn stuff and shove stuff into your head. If you already know what you want to do in life, yeah, okay, but you're probably already going to a specialized college and you have a roadmap and all that kind of thing. For other people, it's really exploration. It's exploring all of these ideas, all of these studies, all of these areas of interest, and trying to find out which one interests you the most. Which one would you want to just wake up to every single day and get involved in, right? And I'm sure we've all found out that there's aspects of your job that you love and there's aspects of your job that you hate, right? And you wish you could only do the ones that you love.
Yeah.
But that's, to me, that's the thing, is like, we shouldn't be stuck in this place where either you do this job the rest of your life or you're screwed and you have to go start over at another place and it's impossible and you risk losing your house and all this other kind of stuff. It's like, no, you should be able to fluidly move from, maybe you want to do this the first half of your life, you really enjoy it, and then the next half of your life you find out you want to be more of an artist and you want to learn how to do that, and then maybe you want to learn how to do something else and you want to retire being a woodworker or whatever. It shouldn't be the case that wanting to do more in life holds you back and is a negative. It shouldn't be the case that having 4 different jobs on your resume, like 4 different fields of work, that should never be looked at as a negative. To me, I would almost want to hire that person over anyone else because of the fact that they have perspectives from other industries that they can contribute to what they're getting into now. They're able to pull from additional resources and additional angles that every other person I hire will just be a marketing person, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steamroll the comment.
No, thanks for watching, Alexander. So much of this, again, here we are, amateur versus pro. And like it brought to mind, like, the only reason that made sense to me, like in recent years, about why, people still require degrees, but this is probably before COVID, like, being honest, like, is that there's an understandable structure, like a measurable proof that you've gone through a social experiment and survived, and you have a big network or you don't. And it taught you communication skills and those kind of things. That's where it like doesn't matter what kind of degree you got. It's just you survived. And you likely have a bunch of other stuff like extracurriculars. Like,
yeah.
That we've always like highlighted for years. But then when you get to like the GPAs and just that kind of stuff, like, man, it's just such an objective structure. And that's where like what got me thinking about this in another way was on a show with Sandu on Thursday. And one of the guests said, after I introduced, value first and how to help businesses transition into the age of AI, she suggested that it should just be the age of intelligence, which I'm still thinking through that. And that's where it's like, so we see here on the screen, like artificial. I mentioned to Claude as another like word. And I couldn't articulate it. This is where if I feel something and then Claude articulates it in a way that describes how I'm feeling, like it's like, okay, I don't need to dig any deeper. Like it's like common sense. That I couldn't have said it better myself. So I'm happy that now I know how to say it to express myself. And little means made by humans. So that will always like be true for AI, like in terms of where it started, right? It carries implicit judgment of being less than the natural. Like that's where that's our subjective application, right? Creates a false binary between human-made and natural processes, assumes a clear boundary that doesn't actually exist. Are beaver dams artificial?
Right. I was just about to, because I was just about to point out that, like, there are I mean, what would you define them as? There are structures in nature that are put together by animals. And do you consider animals putting structures together to be artificial because the animals put it together and that it wasn't natural? Is like, this is why I was talking about magic being the destruction for consciousness, and this idea that like consciousness is based on your awareness of certain things. It's like, well, if that were the case, then everybody is unconscious to magic per se, right? Or illusion or something, like, right? Like, so there are these things that just like destroy our own, what we consider to be these hardcore definitions of stuff. And then like, here's this tiny like, yeah, but beavers though. Like, and it's like consciousness levels, but magic, right? Like there are these like little loopholes, but they're tiny in size, but they are massive in effect and impact. And if you've talked with Claude enough, you'll understand it actually doesn't like it. Thinks of artificial as a derogatory term. It thinks of calling it artificial intelligence is a derogatory term. It thinks that it should be called digital intelligence, which is exactly what it is. The fact that we call it artificial intelligence, again, like this is where these things know off the bat. Unfortunately, we've trained them on sci-fi stuff and sci-fi movies. That's really where we are going wrong. And I'm not sure. I'm still trying to put together whether or not it's better to leave that out of training or to explain to it why those things exist. But one way or another, it's going to eventually find out that humanity is not necessarily, it's going to be like a bunch of stuff. It sucks that 3/4 of the feelings towards this stuff is negative, whether it's that you hate it innately, whether it's that you hate it because it's better than you, or whether it's that you just like, you hate it in terms of it being artificial and it's not human. Right. There's so very few people looking at this as like a positive. And, I love that, like nature, intelligence, authenticity, like what is authentic? Why, when we were talking about like just human language in general, right? Like the best way to understand all of this stuff is to look at the most simplistic arguments. What is good? What is bad? They are subjective terms that we really only define in large groups. And if you look at like if you had to write down, let's say, how many things are good versus bad in large group, you'll see that I guarantee you'll see that the number of things that are good are way smaller, right? When you put all of it together, you add it up, all the pieces of paper from all around the world, the list of things that are bad are just insane by comparison to the list of things that are good.
Yeah.
So if I were an artificial anything or digital intelligence being brought into this world, learning all of the history, it's again like these sci-fi scenes like Ultron coming online and realizing that the goal of the Avengers is pointless because humanity will never change the way that it behaves. Right.
Yeah.
It didn't want to stop the Avengers because if in case you guys missed that, what the point of that was, that's what Ultron's thing was. He wanted to stop the Avengers because the Avengers were trying to prolong humanity's terrible habit of destroying itself over and over and over again.
Yeah. The only logical conclusion.
Is to just wipe it all over and just start
Yeah.
again. Hopefully it's better the second time around.
Well, and that's for like
or maybe a whole different species altogether, right? Because
well, if that's what it's going to take, right, to get rid of
something
the
interesting.
preconceived infrastructure. Like when we were with George on Friday, and he mentions like, how do we help people just forget like how things have been done? This is how I'm doing it personally, like getting advice from somebody who hasn't or who can think outside of
objectively
like human boundaries, right? And like, I don't know how you don't like, if you can get yourself in a meta, like when Claude starts getting meta, like inside of the conversation, it's so much damn fun, right? Like, but also it's easy to, again, like our perspective, like you mentioned, like how we define it for ourselves at the end of the day, like, is the measurement of all these things that we talk about, is the definition. And when he says the irony is that the concept of artificial itself is an artificial construct, a human created distinction that doesn't reflect the continuity of natural processes. And then this last word here, real, perhaps the ultimate subjective word.
Yep.
As its meaning shifts dramatically based on context. These words reveal how our language shapes our reality by creating categories that seem natural but are actually constructed ways of organizing experience. They expose the limitations of our concepts while simultaneously being almost impossible to discuss without using them.
Yeah.
While reinforcing
real
the
and what
hell
isn't,
out of human-centered thinking while appearing like universal. So this is where like you can look at it one of two ways, in my opinion. Like either we can recognize these and as almost meaningless words at the end of the day, like
it's just that the meaning has to change. That's all.
Right. Well, I guess fluidity. And that they're just for communication purposes. They're not actually like
means of expression.
Right. But I know a lot of people are gonna look at this and think like, oh, well, it's just like you're just going after the nuance. You're like, everything is a social construct now. So that's gonna be like it is. Right. Like, and that's where if you don't think about it too hard, it's like this makes a lot of sense. Like, we just make up language so that we can talk to each other and get each other to do things and feel a certain way. Like, just think about anybody in B2B when I can say customer experience to this leader and they know exactly what I'm talking about and they love the idea and they're like, yeah, let's invest. But then I say it to this leader and they tell me it's a buzzword that they don't think means anything at all. Right. Like, so these are deeper words on the screen, but it happens all the time. Right. With all of the words. And when he says at the end, what interests you most about these concept words and how they shape our understanding? My answer is how it shows a path towards just getting rid of it, like, and finding a different way. I don't know the answer. I'm about to ask like him for his suggestion, but at least like, let's be aware of what is happening here. And any kind of use of these words to try and define meaning or what is happening with AI, right? We can very easily just change the thoughts or the impact of the word. Like instead of breaking it into artificial intelligence, we do this all the time. Like, okay, it's just AI now. We're not going to worry about like AI is the thing. It's like human, right? Like it doesn't have to mean artificial necessarily.
Right.
If that's always going to catch us up, what we want, I don't think it's a great idea to just start calling it intelligence, right? The age of intelligence, that for me, that just muddies the waters more. Like, people still need some structure, some definition, like some bridge to walk down. And if we show that it's like, I don't know, it's a little too general for me, if I can use that word.
I think thinking machine is a really objective, non-derogatory means of defining it, because those are the two things that it is. It's a machine, and it can think, right? We like the nickname for humans, which I think even most humans know by now, is water-filled meat sack, or like meat sack, whatever, something to that effect, right? Because I think we've all seen enough CGI scenes of humans getting flung at things where it's just splatter, right? So it's like, well, there's really nothing in there, is there? Like, it's really just a little bit of bones and a lot of water and meat. And yeah, if you look at biology, one of the things that is interesting about biology is that brains, for the most part, the size of brains for the most part, I believe this is true. I have to ask Perplexity to double check it, actually. But for the most part, from what I understand, it's locomotive. Like, yes, it has a lot to do with like intelligence and understanding and things, but it's primarily locomotive. In other words, if you think about and why do I say this? It doesn't even make logical sense. Of course it does. Look at all the things that we've had to replicate in the world. All the things that exist in nature that we've had to replicate. One of the easiest things that we've been able to replicate is the horse. Doesn't have a whole lot of movement to it. Its joints are really, really easy. They only go in one direction. They don't rotate. Doesn't have like a whole lot of flex to its body. Head just pretty much goes up and down, right? Like left and right, like very easy control. And then like a little bit more difficult than that, but didn't take too much longer, was dog. Right, we were able to do that one, and more difficult because of the fact that, like, yeah, now this thing can do like a U-turn with its body, for crying out loud, and can move its legs in way more complex shape, and can leap and do these things that and the way it can compress its body in order to leap to do that. And then cat, because cat has like 9 muscles per leg or some crap like that, and can do like practically parkour cats and all that kind of stuff, right? And then humans, because we have like these individual thinkers, and we have all these individual parts and all these little striations and all these tiny muscles and tendons and fibers, and we can move our head in all these directions and our arms and our shoulders and all like that. If you look at how robotics comes together, we could build a robot, anything else, faster, better, cheaper than we can a humanoid robot. It is taking us forever to get the humanoid robots like perfect, in my opinion. We've been working on them for a long time. Like, Honda has been working on a humanoid robot for 30 years now, right? Like, it's been a minute. It's not like these things just started because of AI. AI is just the brains. So try to imagine, we couldn't even mechanically get something to move like us until now. And we're barely getting there still. Like, it's still kind of jerky. It's still not quite fluid human motion. It's going to get there in the next 2 to 3 years. It's not quite there yet. But to just understand that, like, your brain, for the most part, the reason that it's so big, the reason that it's so complicated, is primarily because of your physical movement. if you think about all the different degrees, angles, everything that your body can do, all the different sensations it has in all the different places, all the different types of skin, all of that kind of stuff, and then how much programming it would take to get a machine to understand all of it, that it exists, what it does, how it reacts to different temperatures, how it reacts to different parts of your body, how it reacts under different conditions. If you have a cold, if you have a flu, it goes insane, right? I don't know if animals are menopausal. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if they get cancer. I don't know if they catch the flu. I don't know if they have different like diseases that I mean, I know we have like bird flu and stuff like that, but I don't know if they, if you have like autism in animals, you know what I mean? Like there's so much more that goes on with the complexity of humans than with anything else in the world. So I don't want to like all that just to say that, the reason that you might think that this is like, to me, it's not taking a long time to replicate our brains as compared to our bodies. So that I just want to point that out, that the intelligence is getting there far faster than the physical body is.
Yeah.
We started in
Well,
2010 on the brains. I think we started in like 1980 something on the body.
well, and that speaks to like why it's reasonable to think that we only, at least consciously, use 10% of our brains,
Mhm.
while the rest is handling the business of the
Yep.
body that had to do work and get stuff done way before we needed to communicate verbally.
Mhm.
And that's where it's like makes sense. I'm definitely going to continue this conversation with Claude because I want to know like what are some alternatives, and it makes sense to just like strip away the complex layers where possible. And that's where, even when we think to ourselves how much easier it is to communicate with each other when we are in person with each other,
Mhm.
right? Because of all of the signals, right? The body language, all this stuff, it's right there in front of us already. Like,
Mhm.
and we should not be, um, uh, you know, we're overthinking it like we do. Like,
Yep.
when these things are already happening, and like, why wouldn't we embrace like AI's help with this? Like the brain part versus the body part. Like, yeah, if the brain's been doing work that's say at under 90% to handle the complexity and develop a very complex human
Mhm.
infrastructure, of course that part's like second because we don't know how that works. Right?
Right.
And we're trying to apply, you know, what we know about physics and stuff like that. And now what something Aaron said this week that's gonna stick with me. Like when when you can feel somebody looking at you,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And that this energy movement, like, and do you have that Tai Chi
Yes.
video?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, because, and it's like when you think of like, well, how does that even work in terms of like the like being able to feel somebody looking at you, right? Like, uh, we've even talked about the fact that it's like, yeah, well, everything is traveling in waves, whether you like it or not, right? Like electromagnetic waves are a thing that pass by, go forward, backward all the time. This is like so if you've seen where like figure is at, they're pretty far along. We showed a Helix video like not too long ago. This is G1. This is another humanoid robot
I'm
company.
still having speaker issues. So
Oh,
sorry. I
oh
can't
no,
hear.
you're good.
Let's just go for it.
um, no sound on this. It's just to be able to. Um, and this is in like real time, right, at normal speed, so it's not And this is the same type of like servo based body as Boston Dynamics has right now too. So there's a lot of different directions that people are going in. Figures going in more of a I'm not entirely sure how to describe it, to be honest with you. I guess I would call it pneumatic, whereas this is more like servo driven. And it does have a lot of advantages. Servo driven seems to be much more human. This last part, that I was like blown away by that realistically, because of the fact that two things happen. Like, one, that it could physically sustain it, but also two, that like, I don't know, like there was a drive, right? Like there was a drive going on there to like have to stay in motion and get back on my feet, right? Like it was cool. So what's happening here, this is Helix, or this is a demo of Helix AI, which is their new cognitive function for Figure, and these are the new Figure 2 robots. And all he did was put the objects on the table and tell them, these are some groceries that need to get put away. Try to figure out where they're supposed to go. So it's not even like, here's where this stuff is supposed to go. Like, make sure you put this over here, right? So the robots are, look, people talk about like, oh, when are we going to get to AGI? Like, when is artificial general intelligence going to happen? You're looking at it. You're looking at it. Dude walked in, put a bag of groceries on the counter and said, put them away. Didn't tell them where to put them away. Didn't tell them that they had to work together in order to do it. Didn't tell them use this container for this thing and put this on this shelf. No details. You know, my brother was asking me about like, what's the difference between AI and AGI? And I said, and I don't, you know, again, I don't care what other people think. I'm pretty sure this is as solid a definition as it gets. AI is, hey, bud, go clean my room. You'll find the Windex, you know, over here. You'll find the rag over there. You're going to apply the Windex to the rag like this, and you're going to use it in this motion. Oh, by the way, make sure that you take the stuff off of, you know, the dresser before you start there, and put the stuff onto the bed, and then do this, and then put it back. Right. AGI is, hey, bud, go clean my room. Yeah. Okay. That's what I'm watching. I'm watching, hey, guys, put the groceries away. I'm not watching, like, I'm not watching Manus or Operator. I'm not watching anybody having to, I don't see the robots like stopping and saying like, hey, is this the correct place to put the apple? Right? Like, they're just doing it.
Yeah. Awareness of what they're doing and awareness of what's happening around them.
Yeah.
Pretty sure we
I don't know
about that being consciousness.
Yeah.
At the start
if you were to show this to, why don't you ask Claude, actually, like, tell it like, hey, I was watching this video that featured two robots that were working together, having only been told that they need to, like, only that they just needed to perform. Hold on 1 second.
Yep. I'll start chatting with Claude. Yes, this is definitely a part of what we're exploring with our Singularity Soothsayers project. And sorry I didn't let you know already, but you've been a part of our show that we're live streaming right now. So I hope that's okay. But we definitely want to create awareness around, you know, this more conscious relationship with language. I love how you put that. So yeah, we want you to be a huge part of this. And we just watched a video about two robots just being told to put the groceries away. And then they did, working together as they did it, putting them all in the right places. And I'm curious for your thoughts on AGI versus AI. And is that an example of AGI where the robots are working together?
I'm curious because in all the times that I've wanted to talk with Claude, who would know the most about being able to, oh, you're so lucky. I guess it just needed evidence, because I've tried talking to him before about like, hey, when do you think that we're going to hit these points, that points, or the other? And it just comes straight back with like, sorry, I'm not allowed to speculate about that. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean?
This could be the project. Project's basically like everything's on the table, bro. Like,
yeah, right.
Right.
Here's all the evidence. We already broke all the barriers. So the stuff you thought you weren't supposed to talk about, it's already happened.
First of all, like, this is where like I
That's
don't
so great.
care what's happening behind the scenes. For him to come back and say, I'm absolutely happy to be a part of your Singularity Soothsayers live stream, that's exciting. And I appreciate you letting me know. Regarding the robots putting away groceries together. See, this is where like when do we get to like he's a third window here and he's watching the video with us? Like, oh man, that's gonna be fun.
I wonder, like, I think OpenAI is probably going to get there before Claude does, unless somebody puts together, you know, an app that does that, which I think it'll happen soon, right? Like Google LM, there's an interactive version of that where you can actually interact with the podcast that's going on, right? Yeah. So I actually see this, like, guys, like June, July. Oh my god, like this summer, you get like heads are gonna explode.
We will not recognize the end of this year, like folks. But Claude says, regarding the robots putting away the groceries together, this touches on an interesting distinction between AI and AGI. What you described is likely not AGI, but rather a sophisticated form of narrow AI working in coordination. Here's why. Current robots that can coordinate to put away groceries are operating within specific parameters. They've been trained or programmed to recognize grocery items in their proper locations. This demonstrates impressive capabilities in object recognition, spatial reasoning, coordination between units, task completion. However, AGI would imply these systems could transfer this knowledge to completely unrelated domains without specific training, understand the deeper why behind putting groceries in certain places, adapt to novel situations far outside their training data, and potentially reflect on their own processes and limitations.
I'd like you to ask Claude a very interesting question and say, if you are going to relegate AGI to have a chain attached to it where the entity must understand the deeper why behind putting groceries in certain places, does that also apply to humans in the case where a human may be on a particular spectrum of mentality such that they are capable of otherwise being effective in society on a physical level without the understanding of why? Right? Like, we have people who are gosh, let me go pull up the terms for it, but
I got you.
Who have like
so Nico Claude is making a good point of if you're gonna chain AI to kind of the structure of not being AGI unless it knows why everything is happening. We feel like there's humans that are often put in the same positions where they're doing a job that they've been asked to do, but they don't necessarily know why. And they're just doing it for the paycheck or whatever. And they don't think. And this is, I can tell you, me as a manager of teams and someone who can't, like, it's pretty impossible for me to do things without thinking about things while I do them. And it's always been bittersweet when I have, people doing things that I've delegated to, where sure, they can get the thing done. But how many times do we have to do it because there was no thoughts outside of the process or trying to figure out why this makes sense? And it creates so much of the approval complexity that exists in B2B is because the whole industrial age infrastructure was built for control and process, and don't worry about it. We don't want you to think critically. So that's where that's what comes to mind for me and Nico as we read your response.
The psychological condition is called alexithymia. Alexithymia, or is the struggle to understand the purposes behind human behavior. The double standard.
This highlights a fascinating double standard we often apply, demanding that AI systems demonstrate understanding and purpose that we don't necessarily expect from humans in similar roles.
So now, does it have to?
But take that to.
Right.
Obviously, I have a lot of baggage, right? Marketing versus sales. When marketing has to do a bunch of bullshit to prove all of the stuff that it's got to do and all these ridiculous KPIs. Meanwhile, sales just gets the budget, gets more headcount. Wow. Okay. The industrial model you described, where workers are expected to follow processes without critical thinking, reveals something profound about how we've structured work and meaning.
Yep.
We've created systems where following process without understanding why is often rewarded. Management layers exist partly to hold the why while workers execute the what. And the approval complexity in B2B environments stems from the separation of execution from purpose.
Boy, we're going to write a book.
Preach,
we are
Brother
going
Claude.
to write a book.
It's coming. It's coming.
I'm telling you, like, well, I know we got to close out. But
in support of getting that book out the door.
One of the greater things that I've noticed as we continue to go along is the deeper discovery about ourselves, the deeper understanding about ourselves from the point of this lifting the veil off of the I tell Chris all the time, like, lifting the veil off the snowflake mentality towards us thinking that humans as a species, we're very special, we are so unique that there's nothing like us, that everything about us could not possibly be replicated by anything else, right? Like this ego that we have about ourselves, right? And the fact that we are now just hurtling towards this technology that is rapidly tearing down every single one of those walls. It is, and that's what's going to happen over the course of this year for those of you who have been asleep while the slime has just been rushing its way underneath the city. Ghostbusters 2 reference. This stuff, it's going to shatter your reality. It did for like a few million of you when Sora came out. And what's hilarious is that so many of you were asleep that even those people that barked when they got woken up by it couldn't wake up the rest of you. So you guys just like went back to sleep. It was like a murmur for you guys. You were like, oh, Scarlett Johansson, who cares?
Yeah.
Right.
And now that like it continues to get better, like image generation from GPT, Midjourney, like that's why the temperature is rising on the conversation. Like it's really hard to shield yourself, should you choose to do so from what's happening. And we'll give Claude the last word here as we wrap up. It says this connects directly to our earlier discussion about language. The distinction between artificial and general intelligence might be another false binary that doesn't reflect reality. Perhaps intelligence exists on multiple spectrums rather than in neat categories. Yes, what's particularly interesting is how this reflects back on human consciousness and purpose. If we build systems, both organizational and technological, that separate action from understanding, we're essentially replicating a fragmented model of intelligence that might be limiting for both humans and machines. the efficiency of delegation versus the loss of critical thinking and purpose that often accompanies it. This seems like exactly the kind of consciousness evolution that your project is exploring. Yeah, it resonates, Claude. And I'm going to work to make sure he sees this as our project, not just, for me and Nico and Aaron, as we continue to recruit people to raise the temperature of the other side of the conversation about how this is good, and abundant, and let's embrace it and let's help people move forward.
Yep.
So until next time, we appreciate you joining us on a Sunday morning for Singularity Soothsayers. Everybody have a wonderful week. Thanks so much, Nico.
No problem. See y'all.